What is up, GameLeapers? It's Panther, and today we're going to be taking a look at Misfortune. She is currently the highest presence ADC in the entire game across all ranks, so today we're going to teach you exactly what you should be doing in the lane phase and out of it in order to walk out of your games with some wins. If you're looking for even more Misfortune content, you can check out our website. We have a course on her over there, as well as courses on pretty much every other champion, as well as each individual role. Our challenger coaches do a really great job on our website exploring the game and each of its champions in depth. So if you want your best shot at climbing up the ranks, make sure you click the link in the description to sign up today. Now, without further ado, let's get right into Misfortune and what you want to be doing. First of all, starting in the laning phase. Great place to start is going to be our basic trading pattern. Now, it is going to be a little bit different depending on what Keystone you take. You have the option of either press the attack or lethal tempo in most lane phases. If you're just taking press the attack, then you can just auto Q auto, and that will proc PTA. That's a very short trade, and a lot of the time, you're going to come out ahead with that trade alone. Recently, Riot made a pretty great change to Misfortune's Q that makes it very easy to use when you're auto attacking. You don't really need to worry all too much about canceling auto attacks. You can use your Q right before you auto, or you can use it right after you auto. It has a very short cast time now, so you're going to be able to use it much easier in team fights. So if you are using your PTA, you are going to use your Q+2 autos in order to proc that and then just walk away for a very short, quick trade. Or you can play some more ranged trades where you use your Q on a minion to kill it and then try and trade on the enemy champion with the bounce from the Q. Now, if the enemy laners know that you're going to be looking at low HP minions in order to bounce a Q off of low HP minions to try and get that beneficial trade, then you can just bounce your Q off of a healthy minion as well. A lot of the time you can catch people off guard by doing this because they're only looking at the low HP minions and they're not looking at the full HP minion. These two trading methods, bouncing your Q off of minions and proccing your PTA early on, are really great ways to create HP advantages in the early lane phase because a lot of champions don't take press the attack, so they can't match that damage, and a lot of people again aren't going to be looking for that bounce. This is what makes Misfortune so strong really early on into the laning phase, and you want to make sure that you're using that strength to its fullest potential. Now, if you opt for lethal tempo instead of press the attack, then you're going to take the same trade patterns. You're just going to look to try and extend them a little bit longer in order to get that fully stacked lethal tempo. Lethal tempo can be a little bit harder to use because you need to know your lane matchups a lot better. You need to know whether or not you can extend your trades longer or if you're not allowed to. If you win all in trades, then you can extend the fight with lethal tempo as long as you want, potentially all the way to a kill. But if you don't, you need to know when to back off as well. Remember, with Misfortune, pretty much every time you Q auto somebody, you can just walk away and that's going to be a pretty good trade. There are very few champions in the game, especially early on, that can actually trade back with Misfortune when she's just taking these really short pokey trades. So since we have talked a little bit about PTA and a little bit about lethal tempo, let's talk about when we should be going each Keystone. Personally, I find that press the attack pairs a lot better with any heavy CC lockdown supports that you're going to have on your team. This is good for a few reasons, mostly because you're able to really easily proc the press the attack during any CC, and that's going to be a massive burst of damage. It's going to force the enemy to back off instead of trade back once they come out of CC. The second reason though is because with press the attack, you're allowed to just fully channel your ultimate anytime you see somebody get CC'd within range of you. With lethal tempo, it's pretty important to try and ramp up your lethal tempo stacks throughout a team fight, and sometimes you don't really know when you should be hitting with auto attacks and when you should be hitting with ultimate. With press the attack, you can just full channel the ultimate the instant you see CC land. A lot of people are looking to get as fat of an ultimate as possible, but it is completely okay to just ult one priority target if they get locked down in CC. Look at your teammates and see what hard CCs they have. If you have a massive CC like Lissandra ult or Nautilus ult, just ult off of those, okay? You don't need to find the 5-man ulti. It's going to be a lot better in most cases to just remove somebody from the fight without them even being able to play it at all. A lot of the time when I'm watching people play Misfortune, they're just holding on to the ult for so long. Just use it, it's fine. You still have auto attacks that do insane amounts of damage. Misfortune is plenty strong without needing to channel her ulti. You're also going to want to make sure that you're tracking flashes, because if you find a priority target that doesn't have flash, a lot of the time you can just use your E, use your R, and you're going to take them out. Again, Again, one of the biggest mistakes that you can make on Misfortune is just holding that R and greeting for a 4 to 5 man ult. Yes, it looks cool, but it's not necessary in most games. Now, if you do want those huge 4 to 5 man ultis, then you might want to look for like an Amumu main or a Rel main to help you get these so that you're not just fishing for them without any setup. If you have the setup for a 4 to 5 man ulti, that's fine, but in most games, you're not going to have it. Now, moving on to Lethal Tempo, this is something that typically you would play if you have an Enchanter support instead of an all-in support. So for example, if your support is Lulu, then it's going to be very good to take Lethal Tempo because she's going to allow you to stay alive for longer, she's going to buff you up, and you're going to look to extend trades instead of taking very short, bursty all-in trades. Now, if you have Lethal Tempo and you see some priority target get locked down, you can still fully channel that ulti and take out that priority target, but you're going to want to look to auto attack a little bit more with this Keystone. MF definitely does pair a little bit better with all-in frontline supports, but she works completely fine with enchanters too. Now, in the mid and late game, MF has a lot of versatility, and this is something that she expresses kind of through her builds. She's going to build the items that allow her to do what she needs to do, and she can do a lot of different things in a fight. So, for example, Kraken is almost always going to be core, but then you can look for either Bloodthirster or Collector, and then you can look for IE or LDR. Kraken is always going to be your core mythic. It's everything you want in a mythic, but if you go Bloodthirster second, this is something that will give you more diversity. It allows you to go forward, but it also allows you to kite back. You can't really go wrong with the item, but sometimes you're going to want to look for something like Collector second instead. Collector is really good when you guys are the ones chasing. This is going to allow you to hit squishies more of the time because most of the time you're not chasing into tanks. So this is going to give you the most damage possible. Also, a lot of the time when you guys are the ones running forward, it means that you're allowed to pretty much free hit whatever. It's going to last hit kills for you and give you a little bonus gold on top of it. So it's going to help you snowball. Collector's a really great item when your team is the one snowballing and you want to close out a game quickly. However, if you want to peel back, it's not going to work nearly as well as Bloodthirster in that scenario. It's great at killing things, but it's not great at keeping you from being killed. I hope this helps you see what I mean when I say that MF can do pretty much anything in a team fight. She can play forward, she can play back, she can play for kite and peel, she can play and look to chase down targets, right? She can do any of it, she just needs to build right in order to help her with it. As a third item, you would typically look at either IE or LDR. This is again going to depend on your game. IE is going to do way more damage into squishies, and LDR is going to do way more damage into tanks. MF is one of the highest DPS output ADCs in the game, so a lot of time in teamfights, you're just going to look to front to back. So whatever you're hitting, whatever's in front, if it's a tank, if it's a squishy, that is what you should be building for. Remember, the thing that's in front isn't always going to be a tank. Sometimes you play against assassins or bruisers, and they don't have a whole lot of armor. MF is really good at teamfighting in the mid and late game because she does a ton of damage, but she also has a lot of movement speed from her W that's going to be able to keep her in the position that she wants to be in. Now, if you do decide that you're going to play a ton of MF, then some other things that you should probably know is it's completely fine if you're into an awful lane matchup to just take Doran's Ring and put 3 points in E. This allows you to poke from a much safer range without requiring minions, and it can let up a little bit of pressure in some just terrible matchups. I would only recommend doing this in matchups where you're not even going to be in range to auto attack, so if you're playing against some sort of long range mage bot lane, this could be a good option. We're not fully maxing the E first, we're just putting 3 points in it and then maxing the Q as normal afterwards. If you browse Twitter or Reddit, you may have seen some sort of Liandry's build on Misfortune. I wouldn't recommend building it. It's far too complex to understand when it is optimal and when it isn't, and realistically, you're not losing a whole lot from just building normally. If you are building it when you shouldn't be building it though, you're going to lose a whole lot more. So by that logic, it's safer to just not build it in the first place if you don't really know why you're building it. As far as bans go, you can ban Draven or you can ban Tristana. These are probably the two best bans if you are playing Miss Fortune in solo queue specifically. Everything else is pretty much the same as any other ADC. You want to make sure that you're keeping your teammates in between you and the enemy team so that you have a front line to stand in front of you. You're going to want to be focusing on getting CS and tower playings to get you to your items, since every ADC is an item reliant character. And of course, you're going to want to look to make sure that you are spacing properly so that you don't take unnecessary damage. MF is one of the ADCs that can take first tower pretty quickly, since she does do a lot of tower damage compared to other ADCs. So if you are taking the first tower before tower plates fall, then make sure you're rotating to mid lane to go take those plates as well. Again, this does apply to every single ADC. MF is just a little bit better at taking towers than the majority of ADCs. She's not the best ADC for it, but she's up there. I definitely wouldn't have been able to do this video if it weren't for the help of my good friend Azog. He's an 1000 LP plus Challenger ADC main, so if you want to check him out, I'll link his Twitter in the description. If you're itching for even more MF content, then we have an MF champion course on our website. You can check it out using the link in the description below. Unfortunately, that is all that I have for you for today's video. As always, I'm Panther. I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next video.